Okay, so in question 2C, we've got this list of numbers. Now, it's a wee bit trickier because it's a decimal, and it's also quite a long list of numbers, so as you can see, I've struggled to fit them on the screen. What I like to do if I'm struggling to find the centre of the list of numbers is I actually like to score them out from either end. So I'll take one off either end, and notice I'm just doing it lightly so I can still read the numbers. And then another one, and then another one, and then another one, and another one, and so on. So that tells me that these two are my middle numbers, because if I scored out the 4.0, I'd also have to score out the 4.4. So I always work out the median first of all. So the Q2, the median, is halfway between these two numbers. So you might be able to work that out straight away, or you might need to add them together and divide it by 2. 4.0 plus 4.4 is going to be 8.4. And 8.4 divided by 2 is going to give us 4.2. So there's Q2. Now, we need to work out Q1 next, the lower quartile. So we're looking at all of this information. Remember, the 4 is included. So we need to find the halfway point of this list. So we can do the same again, scoring 1 off each, 2 off each. And then we would have these two numbers in the middle. So we have to find the halfway point between 3.6 and 3.8, and again you might be able to work that out just by looking at it. You might just go, oh, it must be 3.7, or we can add them together. 3 and 3 is 6, but 0.6 and 0.8 is going to give me 1.4, so this is 7.4 divided by 2. Half of 7 is 3.5, half of 0.4 is 0.2, so the answer would be 3.7. Okay, and then if we're doing the upper part, let's do that in red. Then we're looking at this bit of the list. And again, we've got to find the halfway point to get our upper quartile, or Q3. And these are our two middle numbers this time. So Q3 is going to be 4.7 plus 5.3 divided by 2. It's a little bit of a trickier one to see the halfway point straight away. You might be able to, you might not. So this one is probably definitely one where you want to add them together. 4.7 and 5.3. Add on the 0.3 gives me 5, add on the 5 gives me 10. So we've got 10 divided by 2, so Q3 is 5, or you might prefer to write 5.0 given everything else has got one decimal point. So that's how we would get the three different numbers for Q1, Q2 and Q3, the lower quartile, middle quartile, or the median, and the upper quartile. Then question 3 is a bit of a trickier question. Okay. It's trying to help you get the idea of if you've got a really long list of numbers, you don't want to have to write them all out. Okay, you would, if you had them already typed down or written down somewhere, then you want to be able to try and work with it without having to write them all out in your jotter. But you could, if you had to, you could write them all out and find the halfway point. But the question says, Mrs. Jones weighs the 65 children in primary 7. So that means we've got 65 children's weights written down for us. Okay, so we've got all these numbers written down, and there's 65 of them all together. Okay, that's effectively what we've got going on here. Now, of the 65, this is question A, which child's weight should be given as the median weight? Now, it says in brackets, it tries to help you out. Would it be the 30th number, the 31st number, the 32nd number, or what? Now, if you think about what we're doing when we're finding the median, the middle number, we're finding the halfway point. Now, half of 65, well, half of 64 is 32. Okay, half of 64 even is 32. So if half of 65 will then be 32 and a half. Now, that means that we would have 32 and a half numbers on this side and 32 and a half numbers on that side, but we can't have half a number. So we would have 32 numbers, then we would have the 33rd number here, and then we would have another 32 numbers. Okay, so this would be 32, add 32, would be 64, add this number in the middle, which would be the 33rd number, and that would add us up to 65. So our answer to A is going to be that the median is going to be the 33rd number, because there'll be 32 numbers before it and 32 numbers after it. Now from there, we've got to do a similar thing for part B. It's saying, right, of the 32 numbers at the bottom, in the lower part of the data, which one would give, or which weights, it says which of the 65 children's weights will give the lower quartile and which will give the upper quartile here. Okay, so the lower quartile, Q1, will be the halfway point of 32 this time. Now, half of 32 is 16, but it's an even number. So when it's an even number, we know it lies between two numbers. So it would be the 16th and 17th. Okay, so if we were to write out 32 numbers here, okay, halfway we would have 16 on one side and another 16 on another side. So starting with the 17th number onwards, so we would have the numbers 1 to 16 and then the numbers 17 to 32. So to get Q1, we would need to use the 16th and 17th numbers. Okay, and then you're going to have the same here. You've got the 33rd number is Q2 here. So Q2 is the 33rd number. So then we're starting with the 34th number and going all the way up to the 65th number. So halfway we would have 16 numbers and then 16 numbers. So 34 add 16 is 50. And then this would be the 51st number. So the Q3 is going to be made up of the 50th and 51st numbers. Now, I wouldn't worry too much about that question. Okay, it's trying to get you to think a little bit more laterally about it to save you a bit of time in the end if you had a really long list. But in all the work we're going to do, the lists are going to be more like the questions you've done so far in the textbook, and you'll see in the next few questions where you'll have maybe 15, 20, maybe 25 numbers, so it's totally feasible to write them down. Hopefully that's helped, but if it hasn't, let me know.